The episode opens with a tense standoff in the Reach. Lord Ormond Hightower rides forward on horseback through his lined-up army to meet Prince Daemon Targaryen, who stands defiantly alongside his dragon Caraxes. Dismounting, Ormond approaches with a guard. Daemon mockingly greets him with good news, claiming the war is won, the Greens have fled, and Queen Rhaenyra holds the Iron Throne. Ormond brushes this off as travelers' rumors, but Daemon pushes a hard compromise: bend the knee and be pardoned or face total annihilation. When Ormond demands proof rather than the word of an exiled prince, Daemon points to the swift fall of Otto Hightower and his guards. Pointing out the futility of resistance, Daemon asks if Ormond wants to rule Old Town or end up in Grand Maester Orwell's custody. Realizing he is outmatched and choosing the survival of his men, a defeated Ormond agrees to surrender. Following the high-stakes concession, Lord Goodnight steps out from the ranks. Drawing his sword, he lowers himself before Daemon, formally pledging his sword, his soldiers and his unwavering loyalty to Team Black. Lord Ormond officially kneels on the soil, swearing his sacred allegiance to Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen as the true ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. Daemon accepts the vow, granting a total pardon to the Hightower host and commanding them to march back to their lands. Turning sharply to his own ranks, Daemon proclaims the Reach campaign a success and orders an immediate movement toward the strategic waters of the Trident. As the camp mobilizes, Daemon turns back with a smirk, casually mentioning he nearly overlooked a crucial detail. As the Hightower Lord turns to depart, Daemon calls out to halt him. He reveals that Prince Aegon's young ward, Terence Targaryen, will not be returning to Old Town. He is being taken into Black custody. A protective Ormond asks if the boy is a prisoner. Daemon justifies the seizure, stating that leaving Aegon's bloodline loose in a realm crawling with dragons is an unacceptable security risk. He darkly promises to treat the child with the same care due a son of King Viserys, adding a chilling caveat: as long as he doesn't cause any trouble. A heavily armored Black Guard steps forward, guiding the silent, vulnerable young prince out from the safety of the Hightower lines and presenting him directly to Daemon. Lord Ormond watches the exchange with heavy grief. He quietly tells the young prince to remain brave before reluctantly forcing himself to hand the child over to Daemon's custody. Daemon looks down at the young hostage, flashing a cold, measured smile as he tells the prince he is pleased to meet him. The narrative shifts to the Red Keep, where Queen Rhaenyra stands looking out over King's Landing. Feeling hopeful, she tells her inner circle that the winds carry whispers of victory, recalling the days she and Alicent cheered for Daemon's strength alongside Queen Aemma. Daemon breaks the reverie as he enters the Solar, announcing that the Green Prince is locked securely in their custody. Rhaenyra expresses regret for not leading the vanguard herself, declaring her determination to prove worthy of her father's trust and execute his grand vision. While walking through the stone corridors with Daemon to organize a massive, legitimizing coronation celebration, complete with grand tourneys and feasts, Rhaenyra arrives at the royal cells. She confronts the silent young prince, introducing herself as his half-sister and the chosen heir of Viserys. Demanding accountability for his loyalty to Aegon, she warns him that his comfort as a prisoner depends entirely on his compliance. She presses him for answers on what King Viserys knew, how the Greens plotted her usurpation, and the exact coordinates of Larys and Aegon. When the boy refuses to speak, a frustrated Rhaenyra orders the guards to lock him back in his cell. Staring back at the heavy cell door, Rhaenyra remarks on the boy's youth. Daemon, cold and calculating, delivers the brutal mathematical reality of the dance. Youth matters little when a boy is a direct claimant to the Iron Throne, predicting that Rhaenyra will eventually have to execute him to secure her crown. The scene shifts to a tense small council meeting featuring Rhaenyra, Daemon, Lord Corlys Velaryon, a captive Tywin Lannister, Mysaria, and the other members of the small council. An advisor reveals a devastating blow. The royal treasury has been completely emptied, with the wealth smuggled out of King's Landing before the city fell. At the current rate, the crown can survive only a week or two without heavy financial lifting from Dragonstone. When Rhaenyra asks about her essential coronation, the council grills Tywin, who insists he was kept in the dark by his faction. Corlys believes him, noting he can spot a lie, while another member hints that Jasper Ironrod is the likely mastermind behind the gold's relocation. Rhaenyra refuses to back down on a grand coronation, arguing that a rushed ceremony compromises her legitimacy during a time of public suffering. Corlys adds to the crisis, reporting that the royal fleet is gone, leaving villages exposed to brutal raiders demanding high ransoms. Famine looms as grain stores sit empty following a failed harvest. When Rhaenyra questions why feeding the small folk is a constant struggle, Corlys warns her that hungry subjects are dangerous. Daemon dismisses the systemic collapse as minor details since they won the capital, but Rhaenyra orders ravens sent to Casterly Rock and the great houses demanding immediate tribute. She coldly refuses to summon her Dragonstone Council, labeling their previous silence a betrayal. The focus shifts to military threats. An advisor reports that Aemon Targaryen burned Daemon's forces at Harrenhal, slaughtered the Castellan's family, and vanished alongside Vhagar with the help of a local mystic, Alice Rivers. To neutralize this massive threat, Rhaenyra commands Baela and Adam to hunt the skies, placing a blood bounty on Aemond, promising the grand seat of Harrenhal to whoever slays him. Lord Corlys smirks, noting he has no need for it as the Riverlands are already his. Rhaenyra marches directly into Alicent's private chambers. Bypassing any pleasantries, she confronts the former queen and her daughter Helena, demanding the immediate location of the stolen treasury. Alicent denies any knowledge, explaining that the Master of Coins stripped the vaults without her consent, as the Green Council actively hated her influence and hid their operational logistics. Rhaenyra scoffs at the excuse, reminding Alicent that her faction effectively killed King Viserys before the court. The conversation turns venomous as they trade the deaths of Lucerys and the missing King Aegon. Alicent swears Aegon fled on his own accord before she returned from Dragonstone, leaving behind a scarred body and a dead dragon. Though Rhaenyra promises a comfortable captivity with food, clothes, a maid, and supervised visits with Jaehaera, she explicitly states that the Hightowers will remain locked away until Aemond and the rogue dragon Silverwing are brought to heel. The exchange ends on a devastating note as Alicent realizes she is trapped in a position where she must hope for the capture and death of her own son. Flanked by her female Kingsguard, Rhaenyra paces through the castle corridors. When her guard asks if Alicent can be trusted to locate the gold, Rhaenyra states firmly, she is still a Hightower. The guard warns that a castle this vast harbors hidden traitors and urges the swift execution of Prince Daeron to eliminate Aegon's heir. Rhaenyra hesitates to spill the blood of her young half-brother, who had no hand in the coup. Suddenly, Rhaenyra freezes as a chilling, spectral vision of her late son, Lucerys, walks toward her before vanishing into thin air. Shaken by the burdens of leadership, she commands Lady Elenda to quietly interrogate the castle staff and root out any remaining Hightower loyalists feeding intelligence to her enemies. Seeking divine validation, Rhaenyra enters the Great September to confront the elderly High Septon. She demands an immediate ceremony to place the crown upon her head before the public. The High Septon completely refuses, explaining that he already anointed her brother Aegon before the gods. When Rhaenyra claims Aegon's absence and the arrival of her dragon prove the gods' divine will, the High Septon turns cold. He strikes at Targaryen exceptionalism, declaring that dragons are born from forbidden magic, darkness, and greed, bringing destruction rather than virtue. He warns her that making an enemy of the faith, the singular force keeping the small folk united, will be her undoing. Rhaenyra stops him, stating there is something crucial she needs to say. The focus shifts to Lord Corlys Velaryon, who stands before Queen Rhaena alongside Alan and Adam of Hull. In a rare moment of vulnerability, the Sea Snake confesses that the two seafaring brothers are his bastard sons, born to a common shipwright. He admits he kept them hidden out of shame and fear of Princess Rhaenys, though she granted him forgiveness before her fall. Rhaenyra does not judge, noting that noble blood mixed with common grit often produces the bravest commanders. Citing Alan's brilliant tactics in the Stepstones and Adam's dragon claim as signs from the gods, Corlys formally legitimizes them under the Velaryon name, officially declaring Alan his rightful heir to preserve his ancient bloodline. Rhaenyra validates the move before delivering a critical message from the crown. Back within the small council, advisors warn that the common folk are actively blaming Rhaenyra for the city's mounting miseries. Corlys speaks a hard truth, reminding the room that while they bear the responsibility to rule, they cannot feed the fires of society without wood. The dynamic fractures as a messenger shatters the room with the grim discovery of Sunfire's scorched, dead remains. Rhaenyra immediately commands Adam to sail with Baela to maximize their airborne dominance. The council warns that their assets are being pushed to their absolute limits, but an unyielding Rhaenyra ignores Corlys' pleas to prioritize the suffering of the realm over political retribution. In a striking ritual of fire and steel, Rhaenyra and Daemon stand before their three newly chosen lowborn dragon riders. When the first man requests the royal name of Targaryen, Rhaenyra shuts it down with a sharp smile. Instead, he claims the moniker of Ulf the White, followed by the towering blacksmith who chooses Hugh the Hammer. Alongside Adam of Hull, the three men drop to their knees. Daemon steps forward with his Valyrian steel blade, knighting them under a sacred oath, to be brave as knights, just as fathers and protective of the innocent as mothers. Rhaenyra demands their absolute fealty to her claim, officially launching a dangerous new era of dragon warfare. A quiet knock breaks the solitude of the Queen's chambers as a humbled Alicent Hightower steps inside. She apologizes for her earlier defiance and makes a singular request, to allow her father Otto's body to be sent to Old Town to rest beside her mother. Rhaenyra grants it without hesitation. The air softens as Alicent reflects on the immense, suffocating weight of the crown she now hears in Rhaenyra's voice. Rhaenyra confesses the dark reality of the Iron Throne, that to govern, a ruler must let the position alter their soul, forcing them to turn a blind eye to suffering and close a door within themselves to execute choices no one else can bear. The narrative shifts to a grand, torchlit feast hall where Queen Rhaenyra stands at the head of a massive banqueting table filled with lords and nobles. Raising her cup, she addresses the court not as a bloody conqueror, but as a peacemaker who has successfully forced the proud Hightowers to bend the knee. As sycophantic lords drink deep and mock the failed rebellion of Team Green, Rhaenyra flashes a triumphant smile, ordering the music to swell and the feast to begin. The celebratory atmosphere in the Great Hall instantly suffocates as the servants place plates before the gathered nobility. Instead of a royal feast, the lords stare down in absolute confusion at meager portions of stale bread and thin pottage. Rhaenyra silences the murmurs, cutting through the opulence with absolute authority, the same food the common people of my city are eating. In fact, theirs is sometimes even worse, because people like you filled your granaries while others went hungry. When a defensive noble protests that they only hid the food out of fear for their own families, Rhaenyra counters with a chilling warning. The lords recoil, comparing the starving small folk to thieving rats, but the queen traps them in their own hypocrisy, reminding them that any parent would turn to violence to save a starving child. The trap springs fully as she reveals that the gold cloaks are already marching on their private estates to systematically seize every excess grain store for the crown. Ignoring their cries of outrage and accusations of royal looting, Rhaenyra delivers her cold ultimatum. Your duty is to do what your queen asks of you. Nothing more. Remember this evening as an example. This is what I will expect from all of you from this day forward. Good night. High above the cobblestone streets, Queen Rhaenyra and Daemon stand upon the ramparts, watching a massive convoy of heavy wagons loaded with the confiscated noble grain roll into the city square. Daemon smiles, deeply amused by the sheer audacity of the move, warning her that the highborn will utterly hate her for this. Rhaenyra remains pragmatic. These are merely lesser nobles and merchants who brought this wrath upon themselves, acknowledging that this structural seizure is a desperate gesture rather than a permanent solution to the famine. But Daemon emphasizes that in the game of crowns, gestures matter. To break the financial stranglehold on her reign, Daemon urges her to fly to the Vale, turning Lady Jane's promise of weapons into hard coin, while he summons the remaining great houses to force their tribute. Looking deep into her eyes, Daemon challenges her hesitation, whispering that she still fails to grasp the true magnitude of her dragon blood. If I can't even govern my own city, how can I rule the world? She questions. Daemon's response is intoxicating. Aegon the Conqueror forged a realm with only 3 dragons. Team Black now commands 6. He paints a radical vision of total global dominion, sweeping past the borders of Westeros to conquer Dorne, the wealthy free cities of Essos, and the mythical riches of ET at the edge of the world. As the ancient dream of empire flirts with her ambition, Rhaenyra questions if they are merely glorious plunderers, but Daemon seals her destiny with fire. We are Targaryens, Rhaenyra. Greatness is our destiny. The narrative shifts to a sweeping public square, where Queen Rhaenyra stands before a massive, roaring assembly of the capital's common citizens. Her voice rings out with calculated grace, declaring an end to the bitter divisions that fractured the realm. Those who sat upon the throne before me are gone, and now the throne that was always mine has finally been returned to me. From this day forward, I will rule with wisdom, with strength, and with mercy, as befits a true queen. To solidify her bond with the small folk and honor the memory of King Viserys, she personally descends into the crowds, distributing vital royal gifts and provisions to the desperate masses. The triumphant mood shatters behind closed doors as Lord Corlys Velaryon confronts Rhaenyra with simmering rage. The sea snake feels deeply insulted that despite knighting his son Adam, the queen pointedly withheld the ancient Velaryon name, leaving him branded with the bastard moniker of Hull. Rhaenyra handles the furious lord with delicate political caution, promising that the name will come in time, but Corlys has reached his breaking point. He has bled for her cause, watched high tide fall to ruin, and now feels public lies are hunting his remaining kin. Rhaenyra stands firm on her fragile legitimacy, explaining that at the dawn of her reign, she cannot appear to openly violate the sacred laws of noble succession. The argument cuts to the bone as Corlys exposes her deepest hypocrisy. So you'll dishonor my house just so others believe you're something you're not? The truth comes out. Rhaenyra is paralyzed by the optics surrounding her own son Joffrey. Corlys reminds her with brutal honesty that he stayed fiercely loyal when the entire realm whispered about the parentage of Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey. He demands to know why his own flesh and blood must be denied the exact royal protections her own bastard children carried to their graves. Seeking stability, Rhaenyra returns to Alicent's quarters to navigate the family pieces left on the board. Helaena has fled to Goldshore, but Prince Daeron Targaryen is now firmly in the crown's custody following the Hightower surrender. While the strict letter of the law demands the young prince's execution as a rival claimant, Rhaenyra offers a rare, surprising act of mercy. She will exile Daeron to the Wall to live out his days in the Night's Watch, completely neutralizing his claim while sparing his life. The queen visits the silent, stoic boy in his cell, praising his unnatural courage before summoning Alicent to bid her son farewell before the long journey north. But the moment Alicent steps into the torchlight, the entire political landscape shatters. She stares at the child in absolute horror, gasping the words that change everything. No, this isn't my son. The trap closes. Under Rhaenyra's furious advance, the terrified boy breaks down, weeping that he is merely a common merchant's son forced to bleach his hair and face the dragons to save his real mother's life. Alicent's frantic cries echo through the stone walls as Rhaenyra realizes the terrifying truth. Team Green completely outmaneuvered her, using a common decoy while the real Prince Daeron remains hidden with the main army, lost to the winds. The atmospheric tension escalates to a fever pitch as a frantic royal guard bursts into the queen's chambers. A lone, battle-worn dragon keeper has arrived at the palace gates, demanding an immediate audience with the queen. Rhaenyra commands him to be brought forward without delay. The dragon keeper steps into the light, his voice trembling as he delivers a catastrophic report in fluent, ancient High Valyrian. The Hightower host has completely infiltrated the capital from within. The very streets are crawling with hidden enemies, and the common citizens are harboring false daggers in the dark. Worse still, the young dragon has been captured within the city gates, leaving him as the sole survivor to escape the purge. Furious and backed into a corner, Rhaenyra's dragon instincts flare, "Then I will burn them." But the wise dragon keeper counters with a devastating truth. To unleash the dragons is to incinerate her own city, turning the very mothers and children who cheered her name into ash. He reminds her that the enemy's true purpose reaches far beyond a simple tactical victory, and that their ultimate triumph is impossible if she maintains her restraint. The episode draws to a haunting close as Queen Rhaenyra turns away in heavy silence, her face illuminated by the fireplace as she stares deep into the unpredictable, consuming flames.